Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Correo TV. This is a Canadian edition, English edition of the Correo Canadiense newspaper. I am Isabel Inclán, the editor-in-chief of Correo Canadiense. This month, we are celebrating the International Women's Rights all around the world. And we take this opportunity to talk about issues related to women's rights. Today, we will talk about Pandora's Box. This film is related to menstruation, something that is really touched to all women. Let's see, this is important for all people around the world. And our guest today is Rebecca Snow. She is the director of Pandora's Box, and she was born in England and living here in Canada for 15 years. Rebecca, welcome to this program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and Pandora's Box, I know you took your camera and went to Nairobi, London, New York, Mumbai, and other cities to talk about the women and girls and programs related to menstruation and accessibility of the women products. But before to talk to you, I would like to show our public some part of the Pandora's Box film. Let's see.
When I started my period, I was very young and nobody had told me about it. I didn't know it's something that was going to happen. I thought something had bitten me or something had entered me. That is why the blood was coming. I really didn't have any answers.
We live in this dystopia where our bodies and our realities and our stories go completely unacknowledged.
The sixth richest country in the world, and we've got children who can't go to school because they're on their periods.
We're really putting the girl child in a position where she's already apologetic for being a woman.
Mimi napenda kusoma. Nisiporudi shule, siwezi kuwa mwalimu.
I think that when we talk about menstruation for women, period, women who are incarcerated are often left out of that conversation.
It shouldn't be radical that we as women and people who bleed prioritize our own comfort at the expense of upholding a social stigma. I was almost shocked. I was like, really? Like, let me see you run a marathon bleeding. Like, that is dope.
We have to understand that not all women menstruate and not all people who menstruate are women.
You spend your whole entire life trying to be masculine, and then you're going to turn around and be like, well, by the way, I have periods. This isn't gonna go well.
Every single day, all around the world, women and people who bleed are getting up and waking up and doing incredible things on their cycle. And not only do we have to sort of suffer in silence when we are uncomfortable, but we have to also pretend that it doesn't exist. And that's oppressive.
It shouldn't be the case that you have to worry about something that happens naturally to you that you can't stop.
If we could talk about menstruation in a matter-of-fact, conversational way, that alone would make the experience not so negative.
This is something we cannot help. I mean, nor do we want to.
When you have something like Me Too emerge, all of these problems, all of these issues, all of these stories have always existed. It's just that they've never been elevated or acknowledged or welcomed.
And menstruation is part of it. How can menstruation not be part of it?
Okay, this is the part of Pandora's Box film that is, it was released just on March the 8th, the International Women's Day. And Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit some facts related or myths related to the menstruation, especially in Kenya, in Mumbai, and even in London?
Yeah, so our film really talks about period poverty, menstrual inequity around the world. The lack of access to supplies for a lot of people for financial reasons or other reasons, if they can't access supplies. Also about lack of access to education, menstrual education, which is a big issue and a big sort of barrier for a lot of people around the world. We look at the menstrual movement, and some of the things being done to try and, tackle these barriers so that it's a matter of equity, that, women and girls should not be held back by having their periods. You mentioned where we went. We went to 4 different continents to film this, because it's not just an issue in, the so-called developing world. It's also an issue, in Toronto, where I am right now, and London and New York. People who can't afford menstrual products all over the world. And you mentioned Kenya. We spoke to some incredible people who were most affected by menstrual inequity. Some of the girls who can't go to school in sub-Saharan Africa, on the days that they're bleeding because they don't have access to these products. Some of those girls, and one of the girls that we interviewed actually had not been to school many months because she had gotten behind with work and then dropped out of school, simply because of not having access to products to control her menstrual blood. And in London, 1 in 10 girls miss school at some point because of their periods. So it really is a huge issue. And
we need to
met
clarify that it's London, UK, no London,
London,
Ontario.
UK. Yeah, London, the UK, yeah, where I'm from, actually.
Yes.
So yes, it's, but Toronto and London, Ontario also have, people who are living on the poverty line or below are find it hard to pay these products. And it's sort of a global issue that, menstrual inequity, why are women and girls being held back by their periods when actually a lot of these products should be free? And Canada's making some steps towards ensuring that in schools, which is great.
Yeah, and can you mention something, facts that in Pandora's box you show related that women cannot enter to the temples, cannot touch even a pickle?
Yes.
Some Indian women cannot go to the kitchen when they are bleeding?
Yeah, so one of the things that we sort of looked at is why some of these issues are around, why they prevail, and also why no one's talking about them. And one of the big sort of obstacles just generally globally to the issue of menstrual inequity is the stigma and taboos around menstruation. And they are prevalent everywhere. I'm embarrassed to talk. I used to be embarrassed to talk about it with certain people. You don't want to talk about, period menstrual blood. But in India, that's what we really found was quite severe, was the taboos around it. So there's a lot of sort of deep-seated, a lot of it comes from religion, and in all religions. You mentioned not being able to access temples. Women who are having their menstruation aren't allowed to access temples and kitchen. There's, a lot of people would have heard about the menstrual huts in Nepal, where women are sort of sent off to menstruate outside of the household because they're considered dirty and unclean. And all of this exacerbates the issue of not wanting to talk about oppression and, repressing women who are menstruating. And that's all sort of tied in, and we really explore that in the film in an interesting way.
And also in Pandora's box, you talk about taxation, the taxation of feminine products it was New York, and it was a movement related to that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, menstrual products are taxed in a lot of the world. So Canada, thankfully in 2015, Canada actually abolished the tax on menstrual products, which is great. The UK is just in the process of doing it now because of Brexit, and in the States, which is what we really focus on for the sort of taxation side of the story, we spoke to a wonderful lawyer and activist, Jennifer Weiss-Wolf, who has really sort of taken up the torch of trying to abolish the tampon tax. It's a state tax, so it would be state by state, and I think we're down to about 35 states who have still got the luxury tax on menstrual products. It's called a sort of luxury tax. So what it is non-essential, considered non-essential items are still taxed. Essential items are not, and unfortunately menstrual products don't come under the essential items in a lot of states, which is extraordinary when you think about it, especially when you hear about what other things are considered essential, and some of them are, golf club memberships and dandruff shampoo and Viagra. So it's a pretty interesting look at, taxation laws that were clearly written by men, and the fact essentially women and girls are, taxed on their reproductive system. Why should we have to pay taxes on something that is considered non-essential when it's something that we can't actually function without?
Okay, Rebecca, and from your point of view, why is important to talk about menstruation normally, and why this is an issue related to women, but also men?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can't talk about menstruation normally, then we can't even to get to the issue of why, there is this inequity around menstruation and for people who menstruate. The fact that there's taxation on menstrual products, the fact that some women can't get access to products, the fact that some women can't afford products, the fact that are being held back in some prisons for women. So it's sort of people can't menstruate with dignity or, participate in society. And if we can't even talk about, menstruation in a normal way, then how do we tackle this? And there's this really amazing sort of movement going on called the menstrual movement, which is all about, trying to normalize periods, normalize talking about it so we can actually start effecting change and removing some of these systematic barriers that are in place around menstruation.
So thank you so much for this production, Rebecca. I think we really, really like it. I like the document. I saw it already. And tell us about how can we watch Pandora's Box?
Yes, so it's going to be playing on video on demand starting International Women's Day, which is March 8th, on iTunes, Google Play, Vimeo, Vudu, and Verizon in the US, and then in Canada, Rogers and Shaw and TELUS. So it'll be on demand on a lot of your providers. So hopefully it will be easy to access.
Okay, after Women's Day, during March or anytime.
Yeah, anytime after that.
Platforms to watch Pandora's Box.
Yeah.
Okay, Rebecca, and finally, shooting that documentary about that special topic, it was something that touched you in a special way?
Yeah, very much so. This is something that was sort of brought to me by Diva International, who are makers of the Diva Cup, which is a menstrual cup product. And they really wanted to explore the issue, and they contacted me about it. And, I had never really deeply considered what it would be like, because I come from a privileged place where I've always been able to afford menstrual products. I've sort of taken it for granted in a way, which is kind of extraordinary. Think about it now, and the idea of not being able to manage my menstruation, how much that would hold me back, is sort of mind-boggling. And I think it made me quite angry about, I became quite a sort of, it reaffirmed my feminist status. I'm quite angry the fact that menstrual inequity exists, that there are barriers in place for people who menstruate, and there shouldn't be. This is something that everyone should know about. This is something that I would think men and boys, it concerns them as much as it concerns women, because it is essentially a gender equality issue.
Exactly, the gender equality issue. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here at Correo TV. And now you can watch Pandora's Box in those platforms. Thank you so much, Rebecca, and congratulations for this wonderful, wonderful documentary.
Thank you so much.